why I'm trying to get this message out so intensively right now is because this ability we have to access colon hydrotherapy and the right information about how to clean our cells and tissues and how we're saturated on all these levels, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, is going to be less and less available. People need to hear it now and get it now. Get your colonic units at home. Get the information you need to have, because the more people wake up, the more those factions who wish to fashion things, antithetically to life, will remove our ability to access them. Things like, for example, even having the right to not vaccinate your children. Oh. So I was able to be exempt from vaccinating my kids in New York State. This was, so my older kids were born in 2000 and 2002. And I had very little trouble, even though I had to write several letters. So any of those parents out there who've written a letter or two and it was rejected, keep writing. Try a different angle. We could talk about that some more in a different conversation. But I had to write maybe 3 or 4 letters, but I got the exemptions for my kids. And my little one I didn't have to worry about at all. Being here in South Africa, it wasn't an issue. But now I'm communicating with parents, young parents who have young kids in America, and they are not succeeding with these exemptions. And what used to be a constitutional right not to have to vaccinate your children is now not only dubious. There's a point over the last few years was sort of dubious, like is there, isn't it? Now it seems like it's not. Now where did that go? Where's the amendment there? I'd like to see it. But bottom line is, it seems like that right is no longer a right. So people often ask me, well, don't you miss America? Don't you want to come back to America? Oh, I miss the America that was free. Being in South Africa doesn't make me miss America any more than if I was there, I would be missing it just as much, because it's not there anymore. Nobody has America anymore. Americans are not in America anymore. They're in a different state of control. Government is mind. Governing of the mind. Their minds, the mind of America is under a different kind of control. Mind control. Government actually literally means mind control. Okay, we can just sit with that for a second. So I guess what happened with me was I was suffering so acutely, and I didn't want to live. And I understand now why not, because everything I was taught, despite the fact that I went to church at least once a week growing up, despite the fact that I, went to all the quote-right schools, and despite the fact that I was well-traveled even as a child, lived abroad and everything else, I was so deeply in despair. And I think I know it's because everything in me was shut down. My truth was shut down. I remember as a child wanting to throw something at something and going to think, because I didn't want to be violent. I actually had this conscious thought, like, I don't want to hurt anything. I don't want to destroy anything. I just need to get this out. And so I would look for a ball or something, and we had this brick wall, and I just throw it at the wall, and throw it at the wall, and throw it at the wall, and I would get some of the energy out, and I thought, well, at least I'm not going to, have a tantrum, because I knew my mother hated tantrums. So I wanted to avoid the pain of that. But man, I wanted to throw a tantrum. Man, I wanted to hit something. Now at least I can do some martial arts, so I can hit something every day. But there's this desire to say that which is true, and know that you'll be misunderstood, rejected, ridiculed, laughed at, because there's this. It's kind of like the gang mentality. Culture is like a gang mentality. If you feel something that is not in line with culture, culture will, as one group, shut you down. And what's ironic now is that those who want to speak out about things that they feel are antithetical to the human spirit and human life are often wanting to speak out about things that culture has really manipulated, like this transgender conversation that's going on. So now everyone's bought into the transgender agenda. I call it the transgender. Okay, there's a whole agenda behind the transgender, and people need to get hip to that. And so if you have an opinion that is not socially correct, then you'll have the gang of culture come back at you. And so if the whole idea is to free the individual by allowing them to feel okay about being whomever they wish to be, whichever gender they wish to identify with, anything they want to identify with, it seems to be like really all anybody's guess now. New things to identify with every day. I'm sort of they say I'm heavy, but I identify as thin, or like like everyone. It's whatever it is. There's so many of them. I identify. I can't play an instrument, but I identify as a rock star. I don't know. Like, it could be anything. But when there's actual truth coming through, that it's shut down. So the individual is now being shut down by a false sense of individualism. It's like an inside-out, upside-down individualism that's now controlling the individual, the real voice of the individual. Yeah. So if that's not, what's the word, convoluted, and it would cause someone who's clear, who isn't programmed, who isn't saturated with the myth, would cause them to go insane, because they're looking at it all saying, but that's wrong, and they're seeing it as the nightmare that it is. But those who have sort of allowed themselves to go under the hypnosis of it all don't even see it as a nightmare. They see it as something that should be celebrated and embraced. And it takes you back to your question about the film WALL-E, which is one of the greatest films ever made in our time. It's critical watching for anyone of any age group. And one of the well, when you get onto the spaceship and you see the way these people look when they've been so hypnotized, and they don't engage with anyone, they're fully online. Everything they do is virtual, and their bodies have been they're atrophied. They're so atrophied they can't walk. I don't even think they have feet. They have feet, but they're like these little sort of round things. Nothing functions. Nobody moves. Nobody feels. Nobody thinks. Nobody does anything. In fact, I think there's even a line where the captain says, I haven't done anything. Nobody does anything. So with remote controls and with all this virtual stuff and these games, well, for kids, they're not doing anything all day. They're physically immobilized by these devices they're playing with, and then one of the big arguments actually that the kids have with the games is that they'll say to their parents, I mean, I've gotten this from my son plenty of times, oh, no, but I'm being social because I'm on with an old friend from New York or from somewhere, and so this is my time to be with them because we're playing this game together. And you just want to pick up those little things, and trust me, I think I've thrown a few of them, I have to admit, against a wall. It's so frustrating because all you want to do is bring your child back into the doing. It's going to inform them. It's going to make them know themselves more deeply. It's going to develop a relationship, their own relationship with themselves that only comes from being in a state of effort, mental effort, physical effort, exertion. That's why actually, who was it? A wonderful astrologer here in South Africa, Rod Suskin, we were having a conversation the other day, and he said to me, the reason it's so important to do sport, and because the reason people love sport so much, is it puts you in touch with yourself. It makes that part of there's parts of yourself that you really love. You get to experience them when you're doing sport. And so when we switch off, as the whole world is switching off, they want us to switch off. So the message and the reason, again, the emphasis is like, there's going to come a time when the opportunity to share this and for you to receive it, for me to share it, for somebody else to share it and receive, all of us who have something to give won't be able to transmit this information much longer. So it's like the internet is being used now. It all seems to be free energy exchange. Little by little, it's the proverbial frog in the boiling pot. It's happened in every way. The censoring is going to start to move in. The things that you have access to, you won't always have access to. This is the time to overcome your addictions. This is the time to try to understand what the network of life really means. This is the time to understand what the difference is between false fire and primal power, real fire, real innate energy. this is time to put it all together. This is your moment, and to do it for your children. It's not going to last forever. The walls are closing, and I hate to say it and make it so blunt, but it's kind of like, that moment where Indiana Jones is escaping the cave, and that wall is coming down, and he just makes it out, right? that's us right now. We're just like, get out. So, get out the cave.
But get your hat.
Grab your hat and then leave the snakes behind. Yeah, and the experience informs us on every level. And when we stop getting information, then we're being dumbed down until there's nothing functioning. And always remembering that second law of thermodynamics is that which is left alone will always fall into ruin, will fall to entropy. So entropy is the disintegration of something. So the going from an order to a lower order to chaos. And the only way to avoid entropy is to constantly be striving, to constantly be exerting effort, whether it's trying to figure something out mentally, working the body, healing the energy field. People need to clean up their lives. It's not just about cleaning the intestines. It's not just about cleaning the tissues. It's not even just about cleaning the mind. Because it's critical to clean the mind. It's critical to prevent vulgar things and violent things from entering into the mind space and getting all that old stuff out, which is what plant medicine is so good for, the ibogaine and the psilocybin mushrooms, that it really helps clean out, expunge the mental field, the energetic field too, of course. But people need to clean up their lives by cleaning up how they respond to things and how they engage with other people. And until we get really impeccable about and with our actions and our words and what we will accept and won't accept, we're going to have filthy lives. So we need to start thinking in terms of cleaning up our lives. It's in terms of having a beautiful lifestyle, but living the good life. It's funny, people talk about living the good life, but usually living the good life means a lot of indulgence. So that's not living the good life. All that indulgence makes you filthy on every level. And it just leads to more and more excess, more and more addiction, more and more need for stimulation. Really living the good life is living a clean life. And yes, that means physically, yes, that means mentally and emotionally, but it means that the things that are extensions of you are dealt with, are like how can I put this? The things that are extensions of you, the extensions are clean. And we don't have control over other people, nor should we want to. We need to get over the idea that we can change somebody or control what they're going to do. We can only control ourselves, how we respond and we react. But that our responses and reactions are clean. That means we have to think them through. We have to have a modicum of functional control. So dysfunctional control is where we suppress ourselves. So when the old sort of mindset was get control of yourself, like don't lose your temper, hold yourself together, don't let them see you sweat, don't cry, boys don't cry, and the whole English way of being where you never show any emotion. That's dysfunctional control. Functional control is where you need to think something over, you need time to think it over in order to make an impeccable decision in terms of how you're going to respond, so you don't create more filth in your field, more filth in your karma, really. I mean, that's another way of looking at it. So, and it enables everything around you to clean up, because there's no way that you're going to be able to make progress in your life at large if you're dealing with all this cleanup all the time because you responded to something in an immature way. So being mature means that you're able to look at something, see the cleanest way to respond to it, and act on that. And the more masterful we become, the less time and reflection we'll need over how to respond, because it will just be so innate. We'll be in a relaxed state, knowing that we can trust ourselves to handle things in the cleanest, most effective manner, which is always going to be the most honest manner. Not necessarily the nicest, like in terms of how the other person might receive it, but it will always come from a place of bringing order to all. So it will never be, for example, even if if the person who's receiving the sort of the response we've decided is the cleanest response, even if it doesn't fall nicely on them, it's not because we wanted it to fall badly. It's not because we wanted them to feel hurt or injury. We genuinely needed to do the right thing, and hopefully in doing that thing, they will, level up too. But whether they do or don't is really not up to us, or it's not in our control. And so, but we have to leave that with them. We can't keep on. Often people, the more we become conscious, the more we want to make those around us who have been struggling with living clean lives. We want to help them, and it can become very frustrating if we do that. We have to leave it with them. And what will often happen is that will rile them up even more, because they won't like the fact that we're not engaging them in drama, and they'll keep coming back, and we have to maintain the line. We can't doubt ourselves. It's really important. Again, because we tend to be more empathetic, because we're genuinely wanting the best for all, because we know that we're not going to be able to get any higher until everyone else does too. To a degree we will, but to a degree we won't. There is a limit to how far we'll be able to go without bringing our other selves with us, because it's one body. The human body is everybody, So there may be resistance, and we have to be able to maintain the boundaries that we determine are critical for us in order to keep our field clean, in order to live clean lives, despite how they may be responded to, which means we have to have good defenses, loving but strong, good defenses, clear defenses, not enabling other people's dirty behavior. If a narcissist has an experience where they're humbled to a degree that they see, they feel human pain again. Usually what makes a narcissist is they cut themselves off from their innate humanity. So they're able to live almost like in a satellite field, where they just conserve themselves. They know that being in the human energy field, feeling like a human would feel, can be too painful. Maybe they became a narcissist because they didn't get the natural human love from their parents when they were babies, and they just cut themselves off. And there can be as many reasons as there are narcissists, but basically, if they can be brought to their knees by something, and unfortunately that's probably the only way it's going to happen, then they can turn, and they can, even if it's they can start to understand that human experience may be bitter, but it can also be bittersweet, because at least you're feeling again. But typically, if they're able to keep controlling their world, and they're getting everything they want, and they become very adept at that, which most of them do and are, then they'll just stay in a state of feeling pleased with themselves and not believing that there's anything wrong with them. The hard knocks of life is what will cure them. It's karma that will cure them. If anything is going to cure them, it will be, and it will only be them having to confront real pain, unavoidable pain. And unfortunately, it's the most heartbreaking kind of pain. I won't make a list of those things here, but everybody knows what those things boil down to.
Yeah.
Loss, deep loss. And then, some will just find ways to numb themselves from it, and others will break through. And it depends on what their destiny is. Their destiny is to everybody. I believe that everybody is destined in the bigger picture for their soul to grow, and that's so that we're like human. Our soul is just so big, and then we're here to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, in order to become something more. Like you have a square that will become an octahedron. So when we talk about life's intelligence, when we talk about syntropy, the opposite of entropy, it's going from chaos to order, and then order to higher orders. So the higher order will require more intelligence. You're going to create something more complex, not necessarily more complicated, but more complex, if you have greater intelligence. So the more life force that comes in, the more you're able to stitch something together. So the soul, I think, is the same way. The more we're able to expand the soul, the more the more intelligence it will have, and the more it will be able to shift into something else. So we don't even know what we're becoming, but our soul will determine what that will be. Will either be dumbed down or leveled up based on that information, because the soul is basically the sum total of our life force. And that's why it's so important that we don't have that leached, that anti-energetic force isn't siphoning that off of us, because if that's our only way to become that which we're destined to become, we're just slowing down the process for ourselves. We're shooting ourselves in the foot. But if we don't get this knowledge, if we don't have this information, which nobody ever told me, I had to figure it out myself, after many, many years of just relentless seeking and trying to make sense of it all. And a lot of it that just actually came through serendipitously and just like as a gift. So, there's only so much seeking we can do, and then there's grace. It's just like part of our own destiny that we have these moments. And I think the more we level up, the more we become a vessel to receive this kind of these kinds of insights that give us our next steps, enable us to pass the next steps on. But the more we engage with the world's way of shutting us down, the less chance we're ever going to have of fulfilling our own destinies as individual humans and as the collective.